This is not a normal phone unboxing. This box is so ridiculously huge, it barely even fits on camera. And honestly, I think that's kind of amazing because most phone boxes these days feel like they're apologizing for existing. You open them up and it's basically just the phone, a cable, and 100% disappointment. The UK pre-order for early registrants was an absolute mess on the OPPO website. Luckily, I had a backup because what I've got here is the full OPPO Find X9 Ultra Earth Explorer Kit. Oh my days, what a name. There's so many accessories packed in here that I wanted to go through each item properly for you because this feels less like an unboxing phone and more like opening some sort of camera's collector's set. Never had one before, so let's see what happens. Let's get into it. So today, we're going through this entire Earth Explorer Kit piece by piece. I want to show you what actually comes in the box, whether these accessories feel genuinely useful or just expensive for the sake of being expensive. And then we'll get into my first impressions of the phone itself because wow, on paper, this thing already looks wild. But before we even get to the camera specs and all that big flagship stuff, the unboxing experience is alone already telling you this is not meant to feel like a normal launch. Maybe in the UK and Europe, but elsewhere it's not. This feels like they want you to sit down, take your time, open up every compartment. Yes, there's a ton of compartments in here, it's crazy. And actually enjoy the process. I wasn't expecting this box to be this big. I mean, look at it. It's absolutely nuts. Right, enough gushing about the outer box. Stop it, Maz. Let's start with the actual phone box itself, because even that gives you more than I expected. Inside, you get the charger, which is 100 watts, already a win, because apparently that's now considered a luxury item in 2026. You also get a USB-A to USB-C cable, your SIM ejector tool, and a silicone case that I was expecting to be color matched. This case looks green to me with brownish highlights, I guess. I can't lie, I really wish it was clear instead, because once you see the phone itself, you're absolutely gonna wanna show it off, especially the color I have. And with this tinted silicone case, feels a little bit criminal to be honest, but we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so that was just the regular phone box part. The real madness starts when you move onto the rest of this Earth Explorer Kit. I love the name, by the way. So let's go through exactly what you get in here because there is a lot. You get the Hasselblad teleconverter itself, which is obviously the headline accessory. It's got a real weight to it and the build quality is definitely premium. You also get the hood for it, which is awesome because I've never had one of those before. You get the photography grip case. Now this has got a battery built into it, but it's not actually detachable. But it's not too bad in all honesty because it doesn't feel huge when you're holding it. So even when you aren't using the teleconverter, you can actually slip this into a pocket or a backpack. I love the way it's color matched to the phone. It's got this vegan leather design to it, but also it has an orange shutter button and a zoom toggle. And it doesn't actually weigh that much. You also get the teleconverter adapter ring. Obviously that's important because you need that to attach the teleconverter to the actual grip case. You get a filter adapter ring. So any filters that you have that are 67 millimeters, you can actually use that to attach onto the actual grip case itself. You also get a decorative lens ring. So I guess when you're not using the teleconverter, you just put that on just so it looks nice. You get this hefty looking support bracket for the teleconverter because once you attach everything on, it just gives you the extra support and stability to take those amazing shots. You also get, and I wasn't expecting this, a shoulder strap with Hasselblad branding on it. In addition, to keep your teleconverter safe, you get this nice soft storage pouch. That is a serious amount of stuff. Okay, after that mammoth unboxing, I hope you have some energy to look at the phone itself. This is exactly why I wish they included a clear case with the phone. Look how beautiful it is. My first thought when I took this out of the box was, this is way too good to cover up. But then my anxiety took over and I covered it up straight away. This on the Chinese website is called Earth Tundra, or the European side is called Tundra Umber. I've never heard of that before. This finish looks stunning in person. It has that sort of premium camera inspired look where it doesn't feel flashy in a cheap way. It feels deliberate. It feels expensive because it is. The other thing that hits you straight away is that this doesn't look like a normal phone. That massive circular camera module on the back absolutely dominates the design, just like the Vivo X300 Ultra. There's no hiding it. I guess that's what Ultra phones are these days. There's no pretending this is subtle. When you get a little bit closer, there are loads of little details that make it feel even more camera inspired. Around the camera housing, you have this textured ring that really does remind you of a lens control ring. It's just a pity it doesn't move like the Xiaomi 17 Ultra Lycra edition. Then you have the orange accent details around the camera ring, but also the capture key, which is one of my favorite little touches on the whole phone. I guess it's one of those tiny details that sound a bit silly on paper, but in person, it gives the phone real personality. Then there's the in-hand field, and that's really important because a phone can look amazing in photos and still feel a bit hollow when you actually pick it up. This doesn't feel hollow at all. It feels dense, solid, and very premium. It has that reassuring kind of weight, which is 236 grams, where it feels like you're holding onto a serious bit of hardware. It feels like a device built around photography first and everything second. So before you even talk about the specs, or you even test the camera, or you even get into the software, the phone already tells you a story just from how it looks and how it feels. It doesn't feel like all the effort went into the packaging and none into the product itself. Now let's wake up the phone, because the front of this thing is every bit as serious as the back. You're looking at a 6.82-inch flat display with a sharp QHD Plus resolution, 144 Hz refresh rate, and a peak brightness of 1800 nits. This flat panel is a nice, clean, practical choice, and it should make life a lot easier if you just want to protect it properly. And speaking of, it already comes with a pre-applied screen protector, so if you can't get one straight away that's glass and anti-reflective, then don't worry, your screen is already protected. The other thing I do like here is the fact they're clearly focusing on eye comfort, and honestly, that's nice to see because we spend far too many hours staring at our phones these days. Oh, just me then. OPPO says this panel can drop all the way down to 1 nit in darker scenes. So hopefully, when you look at your phone at 2 AM in the morning, you don't get blinded by the screen itself. What's interesting though, is the brightness on paper is 1800 nits. It's still bright, but we've seen a lot of recent flagship phones throwing around much crazier numbers, 3000, 4000, even 6000 nits. So I guess it'll be really interesting to see how this performs out in the strong sunlight. This could actually be a smart move from OPPO, because yes, those massive brightness numbers look great in marketing. We've got 6000 nits, we've got 8000 nits, but they can also absolutely chew through battery. So OPPO has gone a bit more sensible in order to balance visibility with better efficiency. That might actually work out. Speaking of battery, let's get into that next. This is where things get really interesting, as if they weren't interesting already, right? The Find X9 Ultra has a massive 7050 milliamp hours with 100 watts wired charging and 50 watts wireless charging, which is huge when you remember this thing is also powering a big high resolution display and frankly, a ridiculous amount of camera hardware. Now, performance wise, this is running Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 chipset paired with LPDDR5X RAM and UFS 4.1 storage. And on first impression, it feels like exactly how you'd want a phone with specs like that to feel. Everything is instant, it's sharp, it's buttery smooth. As soon as you tap something, there's no lag, no pause, no stutter, no thinking music in the background. It's also worth mentioning that the regional split is a little bit annoying. On OPPO's European specs page, so I'm talking about Europe, Germany, Spain, I've looked at those websites. The European models listed in a single 12GB RAM and 512GB storage configuration. The China satellite version, which is the one you get with this Earth Explorer kit, has 16GB of RAM and 1TB of storage. So if you're looking at this from a European perspective, you're definitely not getting the top memory spec that China gets. Oh, one more thing. You know how always the Chinese variant of phones never have eSIM support? Well, this variant has eSIM, which is awesome. Obviously, I'm not giving you a full battery verdict today because this is just my first impressions, not a week-long drain test. But on paper, this really does look like one of those phones that just keeps on going and going without making you nervous by early evening, even after a full day of use. Now, obviously, the real reason anyone is looking at this phone is the cameras. And on paper, OPPO has absolutely gone for it here. You've got a 200MP main camera, a 50MP ultra wide, another 200MP telephoto, and then you've got another telephoto which is 50MP at 230mm. OPPO is talking very loudly about that 10x optical zoom and 20x optical quality zoom and up to 120 digital zoom. That's 4 cameras in your pocket. These numbers are ridiculous. What's more interesting to me is that OPPO is not just shouting about megapixels, they're also making a big deal about color, lighting, and overall image quality. In simple terms, they're basically saying this phone should do a better job of capturing more natural colors, handling difficult scenes properly, and keeping bright highlights and darker shadows under control instead of making everything look over-processed. And that's important because loads of phones can look impressive on a spec sheet, but then you take a photo and the sky is blown out. I think we've seen that before. The shadows are crushed or people's skin tones just look a bit weird. So it's nice to see that OPPO is at least talking more than just about raw resolution here. Now, these are just some initial snaps I've taken without the teleconverter attached. Let me know what you think. I have to say, first impressions do look very promising. And then there's a video side, which honestly sounds a bit crazy because OPPO says this can do 8K video at 30 frames per second, 4K up to 120 frames per second, and they're also pushing proper creator focused features like log recording and LUT support. This is OPPO very clearly trying to tempt people who actually care about editing and grading their footage as well. Here is a quick sample of a video I took just so you can get an early feel for it. So my first impression is this: OPPO is not playing it safe. This feels like they're generally trying to build one of the most ambitious camera phones of the year. And we're only in April. That said, I'm not gonna sit here in an unboxing and first impressions video and pretend I can give you the final camera verdict already. So for now, I would say this camera setup looks incredibly promising, and more importantly, it looks interesting. And that's half the battle these days because a lot of flagship phones are starting to feel a bit samey. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I'm going with it. This does not feel samey at all. It feels like a proper camera first phone. This is where the Earth Explorer Kit starts doing something a normal camera phone just doesn't do. The second you bring out the Teleconverter Kit, okay, you might get some looks, but the whole vibe changes. Up until that point, you're holding a very premium flagship phone with some wild camera specs. The moment this lens comes out of its nice pouch, it stops feeling just like a phone and starts feeling like a modular camera system. You've got the teleconverter itself, the hood, the adapter pieces, the supported brackets, which is actually really useful, the grip case with extra battery, the strap. Once you start putting it all together, you realize OPPO was not joking with this kit. They really want you to feel like a camera experience, not just a smartphone with extra bits in the box. Take a look at some of these images I've taken with the teleconverter on. Let me know what you think of these so far. As a first impression, I think this is a brilliant idea, in case you haven't got that already from this video. Even if you ignore the camera specs for a second, I think the teleconverter gives this phone something most other flagships are missing right now. It feels ambitious. It feels a little bit different. And in the market, where so many phones are starting to blur together, that really matters. So away from all the camera madness, there are a few normal everyday things here too that I really like, because underneath this giant lens and the orange button and the teleconverter and all the Earth Explorer drama, this is still a proper top-end flagship phone. You've got an ultra-fast in-display fingerprint sensor, you've got the latest Wi-Fi 7, you've got Bluetooth 6.0 and USB-C 3.2. And on this Chinese version, you get satellite communication. But I've already tested it and my SIM card doesn't support it. It's fine, I don't care. So this is not just some camera toy pretending to be a phone. It's still a serious daily driver, and durability looks pretty reassuring as well. OPPO says it has strong water and dust protection. So that's IP66, IP68 and IP69. And also talks about its drops resistance too. In simple terms, this should not feel like one of those fragile camera focused phones that you're scared to actually use. Now, I'm not gonna go out my way to throw it in a sink or pressure wash it with hot water just for YouTube. And I just don't wanna risk it, even though it has a protection there. But it's nice to know that this thing should be able to handle normal real life without you babying it every 5 minutes. So, first impressions. I honestly think OPPO has done something pretty clever here. Yes, the Find X9 Ultra already looks impressive on paper. Big battery, big display, flagship chip, a camera setup that's clearly trying to go after the very top end of the market. But the Earth Explorer Kit changes the feeling of it. It stops this from feeling just like another expensive phone with big numbers on a spec sheet. Instead, it feels like a little camera system that just happens to also be a phone. And that is what I like most about it. So many premium phones now are fast, polished, and very good, but also forgettable, right? This isn't forgettable. The orange capture button, the leather style finish, the giant camera ring, the strap, the certificate, the teleconverter, the huge layered box. The whole thing has personality and character. Now maybe for some people, it'll be a little bit too much, and that's fair enough. Everyone has their own vibe, right? But boring? This is definitely not. Now, the only real question here is whether the cameras and the video actually live up to all this confidence that exudes from OPPO's website and marketing. Because if they do, this could end up being one of those phones that actually gets people thinking differently about what a phone camera can do. Now, I'm not saying it replaces a full camera for every single job, because that's still a massive claim. And those mirrorless cameras out there are just another level, right? And you're not gonna get that in a smartphone. But for everyday people like you and me, if it gets close enough, you start second guessing whether you need to carry all that extra gear with you, right? This is where things get really exciting. And for me, the next big test is simple. I wanna see how this performs when light drops, because bright daylight is one thing, lower light is where these big claims should actually have to prove themselves. That is why the head-to-head in my next video is going to matter so much. So if you want to see the full camera test and how this stacks up head-to-head with another Ultra phone, the Vivo X300 Ultra, make sure you subscribe, because that's where we're going to find out if this is just a cool box of accessories or one of the best camera phones of the year. That's going to be a monster battle, and I can't wait to make that video and for you guys to see it. Thank you so much for watching this video. I've genuinely enjoyed making it and hopefully bringing tech a little bit closer to you all. I'm Maz, and this is MazTechCentral, where I like to keep tech simple and accessible for everyone. Take care of yourselves. Until next time, bye.